Hey guys, Carlo Filippone here, your muscle chef, ready to talk to you about this guy, the chicken pound. What do we do with the chicken pound? We prepare grilled chicken in different flavors, 6 to be exact. If you're serious about bodybuilding and you meal prep, don't go anywhere else. This is the company for you.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition, Titan Medical, Liquid Sun Rays, Cuts Training and Fitness, and the Chicken Pound. Hope everyone is well. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, and there's a whole lot of news, of course, going around right now in the bodybuilding world. And now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, we've been asked about this a lot, and finally we're bringing it back under their super sale on Isolize Vanilla Peanut Butter 22 serve, 50% off.
It's actually more than 50% off. It's normally $49.99. We're selling it for $19.99. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why we're doing this one, because this is my favorite flavor. This one usually goes very fast. This is vanilla peanut butter. I personally developed this flavor. I took our vanilla, I played around with the peanut butter flavors that I had tried all over the place and gotten from different sources. I created this flavor. I love it. This is my favorite. I'm not really a big chocolate guy, although the chocolate flavors sell the best. This is my favorite, vanilla peanut butter. We never really discount this ever because we sell it too fast. One of my former employees double ordered, so we have too many of them. So while supplies last, guys, you can get this 22 serve Isolize vanilla peanut butter, which is one of our most popular flavors, for $19.99. Now, I don't want to hear complaints because I know what's going to happen. We're going to sell out of this stuff, and then I'm going to get people in 3 days from now emailing me and texting me saying, "Oh, come on, Dave. Come on, can you cut me? I missed the sale." Don't, you guys know when we do these super sales, it goes fast. Don't wait. I have genius people. I have guys that will buy 30 jugs of this stuff when we put it up like that. And they're smart because either they're selling it to their friends or they're just stockpiling it for themselves. The stuff, the expiration date may come up, but the stuff doesn't go bad. So the bottom line is that while supplies last, you guys have the ability, if you haven't tried Isolize, here's a perfect, there's no excuses. For $20, you're going to get 22 servings. That's less than $1 per serving. It doesn't get better than that. And like I said, you have the ability to buy as many as you want, but and if you order more than $100 worth, you get free shipping. So it's a better deal than anything you'll ever find, even on Amazon. So take advantage of it now, and don't come crying to me. I'm drinking my shake right here. I have this every day right before the show. I'm drinking it on the show just to promote our little super sale we're having.
I was wrong. It's actually 60% off.
Yeah, it's more than 50%. And Sid, I have my Heavy Muscle radio shirt with my Chris Tacito's face and my face, or backwards, and my face here. This is a Jerry Beck original drawing. If you look under the YouTube channel, we have our little t-shirt store. You can purchase these right there from Teespring. This is, I think, my favorite logo that we have with RxMuscle. A lot of people always ask me for RxMuscle clothing. I never did it because I didn't want to warehouse it. Teespring is awesome because they print on demand. So if you guys are looking for a Heavy Muscle radio shirt, here you go. 10 years and running, this show has been going.
So again, if you want to take advantage of the deal, again, 60% off vanilla peanut butter Isolize. The link is below in the description. Take advantage. Now $19.99 at speciesnutrition.com. Let's get to the questions. The first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, thanks for all the great content you provide. You have your mass gain and cutting cycles in the app, which are great, but I have a client who's training for endurance type races and wants to increase lean mass, strength, but not affect performance. Which anabolics would you recommend in addition to test? Would you also run tests at your typical 750, 1 gram a week recommendation?
You know what? For a cyclist, I wouldn't be doing excessive amounts of testosterone because you get some fluid retention with it, which for bodybuilding would look great. But cycling, if you gain too much weight on the bike, it slows you down. So I probably wouldn't take more than 500 milligrams per week of testosterone if I was cycling, and I would probably combine it with a good anabolic that we know boosts red blood cell, something like Masteron, Winstrol, even Anavar is probably not a bad combination. So test with like a very low water retention anabolic. That's how I would structure it. You know, DEC is good too, I mean, for the joints and everything like that, but sometimes you get a little bit of fluid retention. Once again, for a bodybuilder, it's good fluid retention. For a cyclist, it might not be such good, fluid retention because it could slow you down a little bit. But then again, they're sweating so much that it might not even matter. Once again, the key with the cyclists is they want that elevation of red blood cell count. I mean, a lot of them take EPO just to do that. In bodybuilding, we're all nervous about it. That's why when I see guys with high hemoglobin hematocrits, I don't really get that bent out of shape. I know the doctors go crazy over that because in a normal person, that's not normal. But when you take anabolics, it raises the red blood cell count. And, the truth of the matter is in bodybuilding, we're very well hydrated except for like the last, day before a show. So the chances of your blood clotting or sludging is slim to none. And if you take a lot of fish oil, that's not something that's going to happen anyway. I forgot when I got my shoulder replacement done. Usually you stop all nutritional supplements 2 weeks out. I had forgot for the second shoulder. I had stopped them like 6 days out. And I bled on that table so much, they said, that they had to give me a blood transfusion. I lost like 2 or 3 pints of blood because my blood didn't want to clot. So it doesn't matter if your hemoglobin hematocrit is high as long as you're not getting clots in the blood. Now, the good thing about anabolics is when you take them, it raises red blood cell count and hemoglobin hematocrit, which is in the red blood cells, that's why those go up, but it doesn't increase platelet number. If you had too many platelets, then you're at risk of clots. So I think that people don't understand the nuances, and I'll probably have to do a video on that. So for cycling, once again, 500 milligrams of testosterone combined with an anabolic, I think that'll give you all the boost you need.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, what happens to my body when I'm following a low-fat diet for a long period of time? I hear about filling out intramuscular trials, glycerides, etc. Do I lose fullness?
I mean, I've talked about this for 25 years. Now everyone thinks they're an expert in this. But, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. And the proof in the pudding is back when I was, competing in the early 90s, what we noticed was that, no one ate fat in their diet. You just carved up on carbs. And what you'd notice is that, 2 days after the show, you'd look amazing after eating pizza and all kinds of junk food. And it wasn't the carbs that you were filling out on. It was the fact that now you're eating fat and the muscle cells themselves, which all the cells have fat kind of surrounding the cells themselves within the muscle. And that makes the muscle fuller as well. So you have the glycogen inside the muscles, and then around the muscles, okay, and even inside the muscles to a certain degree, there's essential fatty acids and fats that are in there that can make the muscle look fuller. So you don't want to deplete so much fat that the muscle just has no pop to it. And so, when I carb people up at the end, I keep them on fats. If they weren't on fats before, I add them in. Usually most of my competitors are on fats unless they're on a specialized diet because their body's not responding. But I always put fats in while they're carbing so that we don't, because once again, I hear people tell me they had to eat 1,000 grams of carbs and they still weren't full. Well, let me tell you something. Your glycogen supplies and your glycogen stores in the muscle are full if you're eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day. I can guarantee that. If you're still not full muscle-wise, it's because you're fat depleted.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. If you're not following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. And of course, over the course of the next month, we do have a major announcement to make next week in regard to who's going to be sponsoring our Olympia coverage. That said, our Instagram page is going to be chock full of content, progress pictures, analysis, everything leading up to Olympia weekend. So if you're not following us, official_RxMuscle. First question from Zico Fagesti, apologies on the pronunciation. Is it really necessary to aspirate when doing glute and delt injections with a 23 gauge 1-inch?
I've talked about this before. The idea of being able to take a 22 or 23 gauge needle and thread it into a vessel and actually inject the oil into a vessel by accident is a million to one. A million to one. If I told you to take that 22 gauge and try to actually get it into the vessel purposely, you probably couldn't do it because it's a very big gauge. It's more than likely when you go into the glutes or into any muscle for that matter, What you're probably more than likely doing when you see blood come out is you're piercing something. In other words, the tip of the needle is going through some capillaries, a small blood vessel, and so when you put when you push the oil in and then you pull the needle out, that back pressure causes the blood to push out. And so you've seen this before. You take a shot, you pull the needle out, and blood goes spurting like a fountain out of you. And you think you lost all the stuff you injected, and it's not. It's just the blood that from the vessel you nicked. Okay, to get it into a vessel, perfectly into that vessel and hold it there while you're injecting it, like I said, 1 million, maybe 10 million to 1. So you don't really need to aspirate it, okay? That's an old wives' tale. Now, if you're doing a very, an insulin needle type situation, sometime, and you're around a vein, you might want to aspirate, obviously, but by and far, it's really unnecessary. It's a practice that they tell you to do in medical school, and they do it, when you go get an injection, but it's really not necessary. Not with a needle that big.
Iron Addict 74, Dave, your take on dihydroboldenone.
Everyone's been asking me about that lately. That seems to be the new drug. It must be readily available on all these gray market, steroid websites that you can buy stuff. That must be why people are into it. I noticed that when Dr. Tony Hughes was selling Trestolone, a year or so ago, everyone was using that. It was a terrible steroid. It aromatized to a tremendous amount, but it was like on that gray market area where people were selling it quote legally, even though it wasn't legal. And so it was more readily available. So I think that's the same thing with this DHB stuff. If it was that great of an anabolic steroid, it would have been produced by one of the major drug companies. I always say the actual steroids that are out there, from the DECA, Anavar, Anadrol, Dianabol, Masteron, Trenbolone for veterinary, Winstrol. All these steroids were made by companies because they had very favorable muscle building, effects with the least amount of side effects. The drugs they didn't make, like this dihydroboldenone, that's another drug that the reason they didn't make it was because it had too many side effects, and they said, you know what, it's not worth the risk to benefit ratio. So to me, it's an inferior Trenbolone. I know some guys would say it's a better Trenbolone. I don't think anything's better than a Trenbolone. Now, Trenbolone has its side effects. You can't sleep at night from it. Some people, it upsets their digestive tract. Some people, it makes them fucking raving lunatics. But the drug works, So, is there anything wrong with using it? No, I just don't think it's a great drug, And if you like it and you've used it and gotten good effects from it, knock yourself out, use it. It seems to be more readily available, like I said, through gray market, means. So I think that's why it's more popular. I remember when I was back in the day using anabolics, and I had a guy who would bring stuff over from Germany, which was great because it came right from a pharmacy. And he brought over this stuff called Dynabolin. Probably no one has even used it, It was like a cross between Masteron and DECA, with maybe even a little touch of Trenbolone in there. It was a good high anabolic, low side effect drug. And we had read about it. I had read about it in Bill Phillips' Anabolic Reference Guide, but I had never used it. I never even knew where it was produced. It was it was a French drug, and it was actually available, believe it or not, in Andorra, which is kind of like between France and Spain. And so these guys were bringing it over. They brought a whole bunch of it over, and I had never used it, and I used it, and I liked it, and my friends used it, and they liked it, and that became a popular drug because it was available. But no one knew anything about it. It just became available. And guys used it because it was available, and everyone, it got like a little bit of a cult following, and then it disappeared and everyone stopped using it, okay? That's the same thing with the dihydroboldenone. It seems like this seems to be very available. People are using it. If they think they're getting good, I have never used it, so I can't even give you my personal, review of it. If you like the effects it's going, then stick with it. But understand that it's not a drug that was ever made by a pharmaceutical company, so there obviously is some problems with it. And like I said, if I had to pick between that and Trenbolone, I would pick Trenbolone.
Let's go to Shoal Aesthetics. Dave, do you believe in carb cycling in the off-season is the best technique to stay lean while putting on weight? That is, if you're still in a caloric surplus. I find it helps my insulin sensitivity and also helps decrease bloating. Your thoughts?
Yeah, if you're going to worry about bloating in the off-season, you're never going to grow. I had to get past that myself because I never got fat in the off-season, but I would hold a lot of water, especially the bigger I got. And I had to get past the fact that my face is going to be bloated in the off season. If I didn't like it and I was going to worry about being dehydrated and suck down all the time and keep my carbs low, I wasn't going to grow. So you got to kind of dismiss that. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean you should be a fat slob. Some people have very fast metabolism. I have clients that I can't even believe how much food that they're eating and they're still not gaining weight, okay? Because their metabolisms are that fast. And then I have other people that if they look at too many carbs, they get fat. So you have to kind of assess what your metabolism is, and if you have a fast metabolism, then don't worry about grams of carbs. Don't cut them back. But if you're a guy who gets fat easy and you gain weight easily at the same time, and you don't need as many carbs, then you just keep your carbs lower. And if you want a carb cycle, fine. What I do is I try to keep carbs consistent on a daily basis. And then if the person's not gaining, I up them consistently on a daily basis. So let's say we're doing 300 grams of carbs a day and they're not gaining, I'll go to 350. If they're not gaining, I'll go to 400, and I'll go from there. If I'm giving them 300 and they're getting too fat and I see they're getting real sloppy, they're getting like spare tires around their waist, I'll cut it back to 250 and I'll see if they lose a little body fat. So it's got to be tighter according to what your body requires.
Let's go to Rosette M. Dave, do you have any pictures of yourself when you just started training? I would like to see the stages of muscle development you went through before you hit 300 pounds. Now, Tyler is showing a picture right now that you posted earlier in the day. We posted it on our RxMuscle Instagram page. This is from you in 2002. So obviously that's not when you started training, but he wants to know if you have any pictures. It's a cool question. I mean, as far as a progression from when you began lifting to essentially what you look like in the early 2000s.
I had it on my original Dave Palumbo website. When I changed over the website, which nowadays websites are just basically stores for your stuff to sell. I used to have this great progression of, from when I competed for the first time in 1990 all the way up to, 2004 when I stopped competing. I'll have to dig some pictures up and put them up. It's like looking at the fossil record. They never find the in-between fossils. They find these big gaps. The creatures just changing, huge changes in the way creatures look, especially the human. If you look at the humanoid fossils, they just jump enormously. That's how my physique. When I was gaining 15 pounds to 20 pounds a year for 5 years. But you can definitely see the progress. And once again, when I first started lifting, if I look back at the pictures when I competed in 1990, when I was natural at 198 pounds or something like that, I was horrified at how terrible I looked. but compared to what I looked like 5 years prior, I look great. So it's all relative to how you look, and I never really got happy with the way I looked until I got, to around 260. So everyone's body's different. My body required a lot of size to really fill out. I had long arms and legs, and to make my body look big, I needed to fill those out. If I had a longer torso with shorter arms and legs, I probably wouldn't have needed to weigh as much as I did. But I did. So yeah, I'll dig through those pictures. I've been once in a while I run into a picture and I'm like, oh, I don't think people have seen this. I'll take a picture with my phone. I'll put it on Instagram. People go crazy. They seem to like these old pictures. So I'll try to dig up some new stuff.
Let's go to David Golge. Dave, why are some doctors recommending to inject test into the belly fat area? Is this optimal? Would you advise it?
Now, first of all, steroids don't burn fat, so there's no benefit of injecting into a fatty area. I had never heard of injecting anabolic steroids into or I should say subcutaneously under the fat, as opposed to intramuscular. Now, it can be done because the subcutaneous route of absorption and intramuscular seems to be pretty much the same. Here's the problem. When you start injecting even water-based stuff like growth hormone and IGF-1, when you inject subcutaneous, it causes an irritation in the skin in that area because it's not going deep into the muscle, it's sitting under the skin and it's causing an inflammatory response. And if you're taking shots all the time subcutaneous, you're going to get welts all over your body. Red welts with marks where you put the injection site, where you injected the needle. It just doesn't look good, and it's sore, and it can get irritated, and sometimes it can get infected. So I would recommend not doing subcutaneous injections at all. everything be intramuscular, whether it be anabolic steroids, oil-based, water-based, or whether it be protein hormones like GH or IGF-1. The only thing you put subcutaneous is if you're using insulin, I would put the insulin subcutaneously.
Jay Stampson 1, does lipitor affect muscle growth? My doctor wants me on it. Anything else to lower bad cholesterol and raise good?
If you're a natural athlete, taking a cholesterol medication, which blocks the synthesis of cholesterol in the body, okay, will definitely inhibit muscle growth. Why? Because all the steroidal hormones, specifically testosterone, is made from cholesterol. So if you're a natural athlete and you're inhibiting your body's ability to synthesize cholesterol, which is the building blocks of all the steroidal hormones, you're handicapping your body's ability to make testosterone. So yeah, now if you're taking exogenous testosterone, it probably wouldn't inhibit muscle growth, but these statins are really not very healthy, medications. They do inhibit cholesterol, but they do a lot of other things that are not good for the body. I personally, if I had high cholesterol, and most people's high cholesterol, believe it or not, especially in the bodybuilding world, because most of us eat pretty well, is due to genetics, poor genetics. You have a family history of just a high propensity for LDL cholesterol to be elevated. And in those people, they have to really specifically target taking the right supplements. I can't tell you how many people I've helped. I had a girl just recently email me. She was thanking me profusely. She's off all her meds. They had her on statins. They wanted to put her on all kinds of blood pressure meds. Her blood pressure is normal, and her LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol carriers, is low, and her HDLs are high, all from taking omega-lyes, which is your essential fatty acids. She takes macadamia nut oil, which is high in monounsaturated fats, which we know positively influences cholesterol profiles. And she takes fiber-lyes, which lowers LDL cholesterol, because psyllium-based fiber will bind up these LDLs and pull them out of the body. Just doing those 3 supplements, and losing weight, of course, she's completely changed her profile. Her cholesterol is in normal levels. Her blood pressure is normal. And she can't be happier, and she's off all these medications that these doctors had her on, and she felt terrible on these medications. So I'm not saying some people need medication. I'm on a blood pressure med because I'm too stressed out. It has nothing to do with my diet. And since I moved to Florida, my blood pressure is very, very good, just because there's less stress here. But the bottom line is that if you can do it naturally with supplements and diet, that's the right way to fix the problem, not by just continuing to do the wrong behaviors and not take the right supplements and eat wrong and just try to pop a pill to undo all that negativeness. That's not going to do it.
Pronunciation, is it ketotifin?
Yes.
Yeah. So Sarush SRD wants to know your opinion using ketotifin to upregulate beta-2 receptors alongside Clen.
I know, I think Bill Llewellyn had put this out years ago, that the antihistamines seem to have an ability to regenerate beta-2 receptors. Now, here's, beta-2 receptors are found on the lungs, the bronchial tubes of the lungs, which cause them, when you stimulate them, they open up, they dilate. They're found on the blood vessel walls. You stimulate them, they dilate, they lower blood pressure. That's why clenbuterol will help you breathe better. As an asthma medication, it will lower your blood pressure. If you take too much Clen, it'll lower it too much. It'll make your heart beat faster, but it doesn't have a direct stimulating effect on the heart. And we know clenbuterol burns fat. But albuterol, which is another asthma medication, also is a beta-2 agonist stimulant. But it doesn't have any fat-burning effects. So why is that? Now, people think it should because it's not the same as clenbuterol, though. We think that clenbuterol has what's called beta-3 stimulating effects. And the beta-3 receptors, they think, are found on the fat cells. And when you stimulate those receptors, it causes thermogenesis and fat loss. So it seems as though clenbuterol has these beta-3 effects and that the clenbuterol has no beta-3 effects, or very, very little. And that's why it's not a fat burner. Now, that's why I think that when I've seen people take ketotifin, the only thing that happens is they get tired. Because as you know, antihistamines make you tired. I've never seen it help clenbuterol work better. I've never seen people lose fat better. I tried it once. All I did was get tired. It did nothing for me. And I think the reason is that it might regenerate beta-2 receptors, but it has nothing to do with fat burning. So my suggestion is don't add another unnecessary drug in there. Plus, antihistamines tend to block GH release, so we don't want to do that. So I would say don't use any ketotifin. Stay on your clenbuterol daily. it might not work as good as the first 2 weeks you take them, but it still continues to work, just like steroids. Steroids work great the first month or two you take them, and then it lowers its effect a little bit. And that's just your body's way of saying, hey, whoa, too strong. I gotta attenuate this a little bit. They're still gonna work, just not as good as when you first take the stuff. That's the case with all drugs. That's why they dose you on certain drugs, because after you initially take them, the body acclimates to them.
Let's go to Adrian Dollar. Dave, your thoughts on DC Doggcrap training, Dante Trudell's Doggcrap training. Would you say this is an ideal off-season mass gaining plan?
You know, I've answered this question about training before. Whenever people ask me, what do you think about this training method? I said, it's great. You say that about everything. Yeah, because I think that in small doses, I think it's good to shock your body and change things up. I happen to think Doggcrap training, the methodology behind it are pretty sound, and I think it works. I wouldn't use it, all the time, but I think for 8 weeks, 10-week run, if you want to do on that, just to shock your body, change things up a little bit, it's great. I give out a workout to people that's, what I used most of my career which was like a, 5-day split. I'm training 5 days a week. I'm off 2 days, one body part per day type of thing. And that worked great for me. High intensity, lower volume, heavier weights. But you get stagnated even on that. So I've made variations of it. And if you go to my Dave Palumbo Experience app, which you can download for $29.99 at the iTunes or Android store, and you have access to all the articles and all the videos I've written and done, and you get the exclusive Q&A video that I do once a week there just for the app members. On there, I put up a workout a week. And that's what that really amounts to is something that's just it's a change up of what, it's pretty much the same foundation of what I believe. It's just changing up exercise and everything like that. To me, it's boring. I just do it intuitively, but I know some people like to have something to follow, and so we put it up there. But the bottom line is that the squat, the deadlift, the bent barbell row, the shoulder press, those things are your basic meat and potatoes. That's how you build muscle, okay? All the other stuff is extraneous. It's just adding a little extra fluff to the mix. But the truth of the matter is that if you ever look at some of these powerlifters that do very little accessory training, they do mostly powerlifting movements, a lot of these guys are huge. They got great development. I remember Jerry Scalisi and I were talking about this in the past, and Jerry was a big believer in just squats. Go to the gym and squat in the off season. That's it. I have a power phase routine that I give people to do for 6 to 8 weeks. Some of my clients, and it's on the app as well, where you just go into the gym for leg day, you train 10 sets of squats and you leave. That's it. And I guarantee you'll put good mass on your legs. You don't need the other exercises, but they help. It's nice that we have machines, but back in the day when there were no machines, what did people do? They squatted. That's it. Or they got on the floor and they put, they pushed it. Someone sat on their legs and they did a vertical leg press with the person. That's it. You don't need it. The squat is a complete exercise in and of itself. So don't get so preoccupied with the different training systems. But I like Doggcrap, and I think it's a viable type of workout that you can certainly integrate into your training.
I'm going to lump two questions in only because they involve the same person, SRAM BJJ. Well, when will we know the final Olympia lineup? And he references Kai Green and Phil Heath as far as, sort of when the deadline would be for competitors to sign their contracts. So for one, if you know the exact date on which competitors need to commit by, the Tampa Pro is this weekend? Yeah, this weekend. Yeah. That's the last opportunity for somebody to qualify. Exactly, right. So there's that question, and then somebody else asked a question. I'm not going to scroll up to see who it was, but if you know anything about Phil Heath just released his new supplement line. You talked about it in a video that we put up earlier today, that he's in Dubai right now, and Adele Walwell jokingly asked him about this upcoming Olympia, and obviously it's another cliffhanger for fans, but he's out there promoting his new supplement line. So for one, the deadline dates, and then two, if you know anything about Phil Heath's new supplement line.
Well, the deadline for mere mortal bodybuilders, would be, I think that it's probably August 1st or the date of the Tampa Pro. After that, you're supposed to have your contract signed and all that stuff. Most people have it done before that. Now, for someone like Kai Green or Phil Heath, I even though people shouldn't really be extended special privileges, I think for Phil, since he's a 7-time Mr. Olympia, he could pretty much tell him probably a week of the show, they would probably let him in. And I think for Kai also, because of the popularity, if Kai decided, I'm going to go to the Olympia this week, maybe I'll compete, I think they would let him come in too, just because the fans would love it. But anyone else, I think that they would probably not make a concession for. Although on this crazy, calendar year where we have so many people missing from the lineup, I would think that, pretty much they would want to get as many people in there as possible who are qualified. If Dorian Yates called them up, 2 weeks out and said, hey, I'm going to jump in the Olympia, I'm sure they would let him in too, that kind of thing, because that's good for marketing of the whole thing. I think that Phil, if he's going to do it, will make a decision within the next 2 weeks. Look, if he's looking good, and we've only seen his arms and shoulders, okay, and chest, which we know are his best body parts, so those always look good. If he's even close to striking distance, I would do it if I were him. It's $400,000 on the line. I mean, that's a lot of money. He's in great shape already. He's got all his muscle there. I mean, he's beaten everyone who's going to be in that lineup. There's no reason not to, other than the fact that he's mentally just not wanting to compete anymore. And he wants to focus on doing what he does best. Now, Arnold wasn't going to compete. And then at the last minute, when he was preparing for the Conan, the Barbarian movie in 1980, he decided to jump into the Olympia. He wasn't his best because he didn't prepare as long, but he still won. So even if Phil Heath is probably not his best, but is in shape, I don't think anyone beats him. There's no one left who could beat him. Curry looks great, but he doesn't have the legs that Phil Heath has. Rulli looks great, but he doesn't get as hard as Phil Heath. So who can beat Phil Heath? Dexter is great, but Dexter's not as big as Phil Heath. So I think that, this might be something that we see Phil make this decision over the next week or two. Maybe he's just trying to see how his body responds. He obviously was traveling. That's not in the best interest of a person preparing for the Olympia. But if he's done traveling now and he comes home and he's got 6 weeks to prepare for the Olympia, I think that's plenty of time for him. So we'll find out probably from Phil, I believe, probably by the Tampa or maybe right after the Tampa Pro.
Gut feeling, yes or no?
Oh, it's a tough one. I want to say I don't think he wants to do it, in the sense that I think he really wants to focus on his business, especially with the new supplement line coming out. But really, what's 6 weeks out of his life? He's not gonna lose his business over 6 weeks of dieting for a show and sequestering himself. I don't know. It's a really good question. I think that maybe he was intending on announcing that he was going to do it, and then the Roden thing came out. Maybe he was waiting for it to kind of die down a little to make the announcement. I think we might see him on stage. That's what I suspect. I think the cash prize is too much for him to turn down. He doesn't have a supplement contract. He's starting his own business. I'm sure that money would come in super handy for him to help launch this line that he's coming out with and launch his next business. You might see Phil do it this year, win it, and then that's it. He might retire, go off into the sunset. You never know.
You have to circle a yes or a no. Which one are you circling?
Yes. I'm going to say yes.
All right. There we go. Sweet. 2 more questions. Iron Republic Shop. If you feel a compound is impacting appetite, do you reduce the dose or pull it completely? For you, and then what would you advise clients?
If you're off season and you're trying to grow and you can't eat because you're taking anadrols or Dianabol, pull them out. You're crazy. It doesn't matter how much anabolic drive you have or how much, hormone that's potentially building muscle. If you can't put the food in your body to build the muscle, then you're not going to get bigger. So you'll be stronger in the gym, but yet you won't grow. That's ridiculous. You know what? I used to always try to take anadrols. I never made it more than 3 weeks on the stuff. And my appetite was horrendous. I was drinking almost all shakes. And I said to myself, what am I, stupid? What am I doing here? Why do I feel a need to have to take this stuff? I don't even feel good. I feel terrible while I take it, and I can't eat. It's ridiculous. So I stopped taking orals after a while, and you know what? My appetite got better, and I grew better because I was able to eat. The injectable anabolics do everything that the orals do. They're less toxic. You can eat on them, and they're safer long term.
One final question. I know we've gotten this sort of a question in different varieties, but DZ Bootcamp Nutrition wants to know who had the best genetics, in your opinion, he says the history of bodybuilding, but from what you've seen, who has just the best overall genetics?
You know, Chris and I talked about this on Heavy Muscle Radio a few weeks ago, and we came to the conclusion, and I don't even think this is maybe even in people's wheelhouse, that Vince Taylor had the best genetics of all time. And I'll tell you why, because I didn't know this, but Chris trained in the same gym that he did when he would come, because he used to dock his boat right in Florida there, right by where Vince's gym was that he trained at. And I also know the guy who worked behind the front desk there, and he said that no one trained lighter than Vince Taylor. If you saw him like doing 20-pound dumbbell curls, that was a lot, and the guy was enormous. He just didn't train heavy. And he grew, and if you remember, you know, people were talking about the Levrone comeback at 51, the Flex Wheeler comeback. Vince Taylor qualified for the Olympia at 50-something years old. This guy was unbelievable. If you go back and look at what he's 60 now, but if you look at what he looked like at 50, he blows these guys away. He looked like he was as good as he ever was in the prime of his life. So I think Vince had the best genetics. And can you imagine if he ever trained really heavy or pushed his body, anabolically speaking, which he didn't either? I think he would have been one of the biggest freaks of all time. As it is, he won an Arnold, and he probably came pretty close to winning an Olympia a couple times. He just never pushed the envelope, and that's probably why he's alive and very healthy today. You know, thank God. We love you, Vince.
That is going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, right now at speciesnutrition.com, the link is in the description right below. $19.99 for vanilla peanut butter isolized, 22 serve, good while supplies last. Take advantage of this offer now. 60% off vanilla peanut butter isolized. Link below in the description. For our producer Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.